My husband is accusing our daughter of being shallow after she turned down the boy's advances. And now I'm getting heat from him for defending her choice. My husband picked up our daughter Cindy from school and he saw her talking to a classmate she previously had a crush on. For context, last year during a sleepover, my husband and I overheard Cindy's friends teasing her lightly about having a crush on this boy. My husband also joined in with some innocent jokes like Cindy and boys sitting in a tree. KISSING. That kind of silliness. And he sometimes randomly brings it up to tease her, like asking if she wants to invite her boyfriend on family outings. As far as we know, she never actually dated him or even became friends with him. Her dad just likes to tease her anyway. Apparently, over the summer, the boy was injured in an accident and missed the first couple of weeks of school as a result. When my husband was picking her up, he saw them talking and noticed the boy had significant scarring on his face and hand. When my husband asked Cindy what had happened to him and what they were talking about, mentioning that the boy looked disappointed, she explained the accident to him and said that the boy had asked her out on a date, but she had turned him down. My husband was furious and scolded her for being so shallow as to reject him because his appearance had changed. Cindy was crying when she got home, and she told me everything. She insisted she had been polite when turning him down and was just no longer interested in him romantically. I told my husband to apologize to our daughter and that he never should have made her feel bad for turning down someone's romantic advances. I explained that Cindy is old enough to decide who she's attracted to, and it would be cruel to say yes out of pity and lead him on. My husband now says he sees me differently and thinks I should be ashamed for teaching Cindy to be a shallow monster and ableist. He is also upset that I undermined him when he was disciplining her and argues that we should never undermine each other's authority in front of our child. I wasn't trying to undermine him. I just don't think it's healthy to make our daughter feel guilty and ashamed for not being romantically interested in someone. I do feel bad for the boy, but I don't think it's anyone's place, neither mine nor my husband's, to tell Cindy she has to date someone or that she's a bad person for not doing so. What do you think? Get it? Wow, I didn't expect so many responses when I posted this last night before bed. I'm trying to get through all the replies so I can approach this with my husband later today. I'm also planning to talk to Cindy privately about the situation. Thank you so much for all the responses. I feel more confident now in my decision to defend Cindy. My husband isn't a bad guy. He didn't tease Cindy to hurt her. It was meant to be playful, and Cindy usually just brushed him off when he made those jokes. I think my husband was short-sighted in this situation, but he's not a bad father. He loves me and his daughter very much, even though he makes mistakes sometimes. Relevant comments comment 1, just because Cindy may or may not have had a crush on this boy last year doesn't mean she always will, especially after not seeing him all summer. Your husband made a huge assumption that the only reason Cindy is uninterested anymore is because of the boy's scarring. He didn't ask her. He jumped to conclusions and pushed an unfortunate narrative that Cindy owed this boy her attention. She doesn't. You need to point out to your husband that what's ableist is insisting that Cindy date a boy purely because he now has scarring and that she can't turn him down because he deserves it to make up for what happened to him. That's a gross way to view disability. If he had concerns about Cindy, judging only by appearances, he could have had a calm and reasoned conversation with her. He chose not to. That's on him. Comment 2. I'm also wondering if his constant teasing contributed to her loss of interest in the guy. My dad did this to me too, and I tended to drop crushes because it felt like he was shaming me for liking someone. Plus, I knew that if I actually dated the crush, the teasing would only get worse. In the end, I stopped telling my parents about my crushes because I couldn't handle the incessant teasing. That stuff hurts your self-esteem. Comment 3. My dad shamed me for breaking up with my first boyfriend, and that was the last straw that made me lose all respect for him. My dad didn't know it at the time because he was the kind of person who would attack a kid. But that boyfriend had been pressuring 14-year-old me. No, thank you. But of course, I was the one being blamed for breaking up with him and for being friendly with other guys too soon afterward. I don't have a relationship with my dad anymore, and this was just one of many reasons. Parents never know 100% of the story when it comes to romances, so it's never their place to punish or reprimand a child for relationship decisions. Update. Hi, everyone. I received a lot of responses yesterday, so I thought I should update you on what has happened since I posted. I wanted to address a few things I saw in the comments. Many people implied or outright said that if Cindy's reasons for turning down the boy, Sam, were primarily due to his change in appearance, then my husband was right in calling her a shallow monster and I was enabling her. This didn't sit right with me and it hurt to hear. But people also pointed out that if the roles were reversed and it was my daughter whose appearance had changed, I would probably be livid if a boy rejected her. These comments made me reflect deeply on the situation, and I'm really glad I was asked these questions because it helped clarify the lessons I want my daughter to take from this. I realized that while I would be upset if this happened to my daughter, I wouldn't be angry at the boy for rejecting her as long as he treated her with respect. I would be upset at the unfairness of the situation, but I would never expect someone to fix that injustice at the expense of their own autonomy. Instead, I would comfort my daughter and explain that people are like puzzle pieces. Not all of them fit together. And just because a boy she liked wasn't a match doesn't make her any less valuable or beautiful. One day, she will find someone who does fit well with her. The lesson I want my daughter to learn is that she's not shallow for rejecting someone romantically, regardless of the reason, even if it's physical. Everyone is owed respect and decency, but not romantic affection. Denying someone respect based on appearance would be shallow, but she didn't do that. Her romantic affection is not a commodity to be handed out. It belongs to her alone. She has the right to decide who she shares it with. Many comments help me realize how important it is for Cindy to feel that her consent matters. What starts as going on a date she doesn't want could escalate into her feeling pressured into more dangerous or traumatizing situations. Thank you so much to the commenters who shared their stories, which helped me see this more clearly. Some people speculated that I would likely leave my husband if his appearance changed. Sorry to disappoint, but I would never do that. I love my husband deeply. Our relationship is built on much more than dating or a crush. We've built a life together, and a change in his appearance wouldn't change my love for him. We've been married long enough that my attraction to him goes far deeper than looks. Maybe it would be different if we were just dating and barely knew each other, but things change when you make vows to stick together in sickness and in health. Many people are claiming that my husband is a monster and harmful. It may seem that way if all you know about him is this one situation, but he is a full human being. He does more for this family every day than I could ever express in one post. He has issues with anger and that he often says things he regrets in the heat of a moment, but when he cools off, he is always open to listening and communicating. I now understand how damaging his teasing of Cindy about Sam was last year, and I will make sure that doesn't happen again. However, I assure you all that this is something he did out of ignorance, not malice. He loves Cindy to bits and would never intentionally do something to harm her. Okay, under what happened yesterday, my husband woke up and left the house early, so I didn't get a chance to talk to him. When Cindy woke up, I made sure she was okay and told her I wanted to talk to her about what happened the day before. Her friend's mom gave her a ride home, and she got here before my husband did, so we were able to have a heart-to-heart. I told her that she doesn't need to explain to me or anyone why she changed her mind about Sam. And I explained to her all the things I mentioned above. That Sam was going through something very hard and she should be kind to him, but she does not owe him a date if she is not interested in him romantically. That she isn't shallow and should never feel pressured to do something with someone she doesn't want to do. And that her dad was upset and said things he didn't mean. Even so, he still loves her, and so do I. She started to cry, so I held her for a while. She told me she was more upset than anything that her dad thinks of her as a bad person. This broke my heart, so I told her I would talk to her dad about it when he got home. When my husband got home, I told him we needed to talk about yesterday. He didn't want to at first, but I insisted and told him it was about Cindy's well-being, as she was still upset and even thought her own father considered her a bad person. This upset him, and he said of course he didn't think that. I basically explained my thoughts above, and although he was a bit resistant at first and insisted that he just didn't want Cindy to become a shallow person, he really listened when I explained how people might take advantage of her in the future if she starts to feel like her consent and desires don't matter. I didn't show him the post I made, but I wrote down some of the comments and stories and read them to him. I told him they were stories I found on Reddit from people who experienced something similar. I didn't show him my post because so many comments unfairly painted him as a monster, and I was worried it would make him defensive. I think it broke through. To him because he was really upset at the thought of our daughter one day being manipulated into staying with someone who was hurting her. He went to talk to her privately in her room while I prepared dinner. and afterward, she seemed a lot happier and was joking around with her dad again. Today, they're both planning to go bowling together as well. Thank you, everyone, for the advice, the stories, and for motivating me to stick to my decision to defend Cindy. You guys are awesome. More relevant comments comment one, unfortunately. Whether you want to recognize it or not, the fact that your husband's immediate response to your daughter turning down a date with a boy was to call her a monster. Call her horrible and tell her that he never wants to see her again is indicative of abusive behavior. That doesn't mean that your husband is ultimately abusive, but that he displays some abusive traits that need to either be worked on now or you need to get out of that house before they turn even more abusive. No father who genuinely loves and cares about his childhood sit there and call her a monster because she turned down a date with a boy. No father who has respect for his child would do that. No father who wants to be involved in his child's life would say that. Your husband needs to get into some serious anger management classes or therapy to work through whatever it is that causes him to explode and say things that he regrets. Because it's not going to just stop at words. It never does. Comment 2. Your husband called your daughter a shallow monster and said that he would never look at you the same way again. And he did this for, checks notes, turning down a date with a boy she hadn't seen for months. Your husband needs help. Your daughter probably does too. Now those are the kinds of words that stay with a person forever.